Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're asking a question that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually at the very edge of neuroscience. Is the you think you are even real? Let's get into it, because what science is finding out might just challenge everything you think you know about reality itself. Okay, let's just get this out of the way right now. You don't see objective reality. Nope. The world you see, hear, and feel, it's not the real thing. It's a show, a completely personalized movie put on just for you, by your very own brain. And this isn't some philosophical thought experiment. This is a cold, hard finding from cognitive science. And it gets weirder. It's not just that our brains are all playing the same trick on us. No, as this quote points out, the reality one person's brain cooks up can be totally different from someone else's. I mean, think about that. What you perceive as the color blue, someone else might actually hear as a sound. Something that's totally obvious to you could be literally invisible to your best friend. So that just naturally leads to this kind of creepy but also fascinating question, right? If your reality is a custom job, what are the specs? What features did your brain decide to keep? And maybe more importantly, what did it decide to just leave on the cutting room floor? What is your brain hiding from you? All right, so to really get our heads around this, let's start with a simple, almost funny example of how reality gets, well, bent. This is where we can actually catch our own brain in the act of building what we see, instead of just, recording it. Okay, take a look at this. This is called the Thatcher effect. Now, because this face is upside down, it probably looks fine, right? A little weird maybe, but nothing seems drastically wrong. But if you were to flip it right side up, you'd see the eyes and mouth are actually horrifyingly inverted. So why don't you see that right away? It's because your brain has these super specialized circuits just for looking at upright faces. When you show it an upside down one, those circuits just don't fire properly. The brain just goes, yep, that's a face, and moves on, completely missing this giant glaring error. This is our first huge clue. Your brain would rather give you a quick, good enough summary than a 100% accurate picture. And look, the Thatcher effect isn't just some quirky party trick. It's a window into a really fundamental principle. Your brain isn't a passive camera just recording whatever's out there. It's more like an active artist, constantly interpreting, guessing, and basically painting the world you experience. This idea has actually been brewing for a long, long time. We've gone from ancient philosophy to the empiricists back in the 1600s, all the way to today's cognitive neuroscience, which is what finally gives us the amazing tools to actually see the brain in action. This whole journey has led us to a totally new way of thinking about perception itself. And that brings us to this key concept, active perception. See, every single second, your senses are just getting hammered by this chaotic storm of information, what scientists call noisy and incomplete sensory data. It's a mess. So your brain's job is to take that chaotic flood of data and build a stable, useful model of the world that you can actually live in. It's not showing you reality. It's giving you a user-friendly summary, a highlights reel. Okay, so now we're going even deeper. If our brain is building a model of the world, what does that mean for the you that seems to be living inside it? This is where we get to this really powerful, kind of mind-bending metaphor from the philosopher Thomas Metzinger. Metzinger just comes right out of the gate with this incredibly provocative claim. He basically says that feeling of being a self, that solid, single thing at the very center of your experience, is the most convincing and powerful part of the whole simulation your brain is running. But it's still just part of the simulation. And he calls this simulation the ego tunnel. I want you to think of it like the most perfect virtual reality system ever designed. It's a mental model of the world that is so seamless, so completely immersive, that you don't even know you're inside it. You just experience it as reality. And what's the most important feature in this whole VR world? Well, it's that little avatar at the center of it all, with a giant "You Are Here" sign pointing right at it. That is your self-model. Yeah, this really shows the difference perfectly. On one side, you've got the real physical world, just a chaotic, buzzing, probabilistic form of raw information. And on the other side, you have your ego tunnel, a clean, coherent story. Your brain filters out all the noise, it fills in the missing pieces, and it creates a main character, you, to make the whole thing easy to navigate. It's basically the ultimate user interface for a biological machine. So, how on earth can we prove this ego tunnel actually exists? Well, like with any piece of software, the best way to understand it is to look for the glitches. You know, those moments where the simulation kind of stutters and breaks down, and for a second, you can see the code running underneath? So our first glitch is something called synesthesia. For people with synesthesia, the brain's wiring is just a little different, and it causes their senses to get crossed. So they might hear a specific musical note and actually see the color blue, or they might taste a certain flavor whenever they read a specific word. This is a vivid demonstration that the reality one brain builds can be completely, fundamentally different from another's, even when they're getting the same raw data from the world. Okay, this next glitch gets even closer to the self. It's called the rubber hand illusion. Here's how it works. Your real hand is hidden from view, and you watch a fake rubber hand being stroked in perfect time with someone stroking your unseen real hand. After just a minute or so, your brain does something absolutely incredible. It rewires your internal body map on the fly and adopts the rubber hand as your own. You will literally start to feel the touch on the fake hand. This is just mind-blowing proof that even your sense of what your physical body is a flexible, editable construct. But honestly, the most compelling glitch, the real smoking gun, comes from stimulating the brain directly. Neuroscientists were stimulating a specific spot in a patient's brain, the right angular gyrus, and they accidentally triggered a full-blown out-of-body experience. The patient reported that she was floating up near the ceiling, looking down at her own body on the table. Think about that. A tiny physical poke to a specific bit of brain tissue was enough to completely detach her feeling of self from her physical body. This is incredibly powerful evidence that our sense of being a single, unified self, located right behind our eyes, is a constructed brain state, one that can be changed. So, let's put all these pieces together, right? These glitches, they aren't just weird little curiosities. They are actual windows that let us peer into the true nature of the self and of reality itself. So, here's the argument, boiled down to 3 simple steps. 1. Your senses are not a perfect window onto the world. They're filtered, they're flawed, they're limited. 2. Your brain takes this messy feed and builds a seamless, immersive simulation for you to live in, the ego tunnel. And 3. That feeling of being a self right at the center of it all, that's the tunnel's most brilliant feature. It's an amazing tool that lets a biological creature model itself and get around in its world. A useful tool for sure, but an illusion nonetheless. And this idea has some really profound implications for the future. I mean, if the self is just a really complex computational model, could we build one? AI researchers are literally building robots that generate their own internal self-models to help them understand their own bodies and navigate the world. This is not sci-fi anymore, people, and it raises these huge questions. Could we actually create artificial consciousness, an artificial ego? And if we did, what kind of moral responsibilities would we have to these new constructed selves? It all brings us to this one final conclusion. The self is a story. It's a simulation, a user interface created by the brain for the brain. But that leaves us with one last incredibly deep and maybe unanswerable question. If your self is just the story the brain is telling, then who or what is the listener? And that's a mystery for another time. Thanks for joining The Explainer.